We flew our 12 kg French Bulldog inside the cabin from Dubai to New York. I repeat, inside the cabin. In this video, we're going to give you a complete step-by-step guide on exactly how we were able to take our 12 kg dog from the UAE to New York City inside the cabin without a pet relocator. And by the way, the UAE is considered to be a high-risk rabies country. So there's a few things that we have to do extra.
We are Larry and Charlie, the co-founders of the first holistic and natural pet health store in the Middle East. And before we get started, we just want to note that the rules and regulations change. So this is just a summary of what worked for us and our situation when traveling with our French Bulldog. Since we flew with Air Canada, this is actually a great way to exit the UAE, fly to Canada, connect within the USA, or even continue to South America or even Europe. This would be a very long trip. However, it would be definitely a possibility for you, and it's much easier to travel with your pet in the cabin.
Yeah, from America.
From America.
All right, before you book your trip, make sure that you watch this video from start to finish, because pets can only enter the USA through very certain airports, and also we want to make sure that you don't miss any important steps.
Yes. Again, we are giving you the complete step-by-step guide on exactly how we were able to do it, and without having to book a pet relocator, which is going to save you a lot of cash.
Yeah. All right, so when we started doing our research to take our French Bulldog to America with us, we had two hurdles to cross. The first hurdle was the weight restriction. So most airlines will actually only take dogs below 8 kilos, but our French Bulldog is 12 kilos. So we had to find an airline that does not have any weight restrictions for pets inside the cabin.
Now, the second difficulty was actually local UAE regulations that restrict the travel with pets inside of the cabin. So we had to find an airline that would actually allow pets in the cabin from flights from UAE outward. So again, that was the second biggest challenge, just trying to find an airline that would accept MOCCAE in the cabin.
Going out of Dubai.
Going out of Dubai, yes. So trying to figure out which airline MOCCAE can fly with was actually the most difficult part of this whole process of getting her here to the US. All of the documentation that came later on wasn't nearly as difficult to research. And at the very beginning of our journey, we actually called a bunch of different airlines to try to figure out if it would be possible to take our 12 kilo French Bulldog from Dubai into New York City with us.
So we quickly figured out that we pretty much only had two options, which were Air Canada and United Airlines. We called both of the airlines about 3 to 4 times just to confirm with different employees that it is indeed possible to take a 12 kilo dog inside the cabin, leaving from Dubai. We have a little trust issues.
Yeah. So when we were finally ready to book the flight, we called up United Airlines and we spoke to the customer service rep on the phone, and we actually had her on the phone. We booked the flight. She said it's definitely possible to add her as a pet in the cabin. But as we were adding MOCCAE to our confirmation ticket, error message. Oh, I'll place you on hold. And it was just, it ended up not working out. So we were able to cancel the ticket and get our money back. After this happened, we basically did the same exact thing with Air Canada.
Booking a pet onto a flight actually has to be done via phone call. It can't be done online.
We called them up, confirmed if pets are allowed in the cabin.
And they said yes.
And they said definitely possible. And then we proceeded to add MOCCAE onto the flight via phone call. But this time it actually worked. We were so happy. Like, honestly, I was just so ecstatic.
Are you sure? This is confirmed. Are you 100% sure I can bring my dog in cabin?
Yeah, so we
to New York from Dubai.
The customer service rep was like, yeah. But we were so excited because this is the first time MOCCAE was actually able to leave the UAE.
Yeah.
So It did cost us $100 Canadian to add MOCCAE to the ticket, which honestly was pretty reasonable.
Yeah,
honestly,
super reasonable.
compared to, you know, traveling cargo.
Or other airlines that charge ridiculous amounts
Or
of
other
money.
airlines that charge $1,500.
Exactly.
So this was a huge bargain that we appreciate, actually.
Yeah, this ticket was only for out of the UAE, so UAE to Canada with a stopover and then to New York. It did not include the travel back to the UAE. So please do check the description section on traveling back into the UAE.
So thankfully, Air Canada does not have any weight restrictions for pets in the cabin, which was really, really important. The pet just needs to fit inside of the pet carrier in a soft-sided pet carrier, and it needs to be of a specific size.
So the pet carrier that we used for MOCCAE is actually really cool, and I really recommend that you check it out, because the one that we got, it actually extends to the sides and you can make it bigger. So MOCCAE has actually more space inside of it. We were not able to use this feature on the plane because someone was sitting right next to us, but it is a very useful feature to have while you're waiting for boarding or you're at a connecting flight, and in the airport at least your dog has a lot more space.
Now let's talk about all the import, export documentation that was actually done. This is one of the most important parts of the actual travel, because this was requirements to leave the country as well as importing MOCCAE into the United States. So we actually did all of the research for export and import ourselves, and we did not use a pet relocating agent.
And it wasn't actually that difficult to figure out which documents we needed to export MOCCAE out of the Dubai and import her into the US. So you can definitely do this research yourself if you feel comfortable. And the website that we used for our research, we will link them below as well. But they were mostly moccae.gov.ae if you're located in the UAE, and then cdc.gov and usda.gov for import into the US. Again, these links will be in the description section below.
Be sure to check that out.
Yeah.
Since the USA considers UAE to be a high-risk rabies country, we actually had to obtain additional documentation. And here we're actually going to go step by step through everything that's required to enter the United States for a dog over the age of 1.
And that is from any high-risk rabies country, not just the UAE.
Yeah. So first off, I just want to mention that if you go onto the CDC website with the list of high-risk rabies countries, there will actually be an alert that says something like the CDC is extending temporary suspension of dog importation from high-risk dog rabies countries. However, this does not mean that you cannot import your dog. It just means that you'll need additional documents to import your dog into the United States.
Which we'll cover now, because we had to do the same exact thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so all pets have to be registered and microchipped to be able to travel. This is
mandatory.
For all pets, yes. They also must be up to date on their rabies vaccination.
So there were different certificates that we actually needed to get. Some of them took a few weeks and some of them took just a few days before we traveled. So we will start with the documents that took the longest time to obtain.
Yeah, so make sure you do these first. So here's what we needed for our dog Milka. Number 1, a serologic rabies titer test. Since, again, the UAE is considered a high-risk rabies country, we required a serologic titer test that shows our dog has sufficient antibodies for rabies. We got this serologic titer test done at a local vet clinic, and it takes about 7 to 14 days to actually receive the results. But personally, for us, it took 7 days, thankfully. And it did cost us around 1,300 dirhams. Which, by the way, that's the most expensive part of the whole import process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to find an approved laboratory anywhere in the world, you can actually check the CDC website. And if you don't see an approved laboratory in your city, you can check with your local vet they will likely be able to send the blood work to an approved laboratory. And this may take a little bit longer, but this should definitely be possible. So make sure you check the link again in the description section to find more information about that. So after you do the serologic titer test, dogs actually need to wait 45 days from the date that their titer test is actually collected before they can enter into the United States. This is why this is extremely important that you get this done first if you're planning on traveling soon.
The titer tests are valid for entry into the US for 1 year, 365 days from the dates of collection. The second thing that we needed to obtain because we're importing a dog from a high-risk rabies country is the CDC Rabies Vaccination and Microchip record, aka Rabies Vaccination Certificate. So after we received our positive serologic titer test results, we went with that certificate to our vet and got the CDC Rabies Vaccination and Microchip record, which is actually just a PDF that we're going to link below as well. You print that out and that must be signed and stamped by your veterinarian. So just to be clear, we did not have to revaccinate Milka for rabies. We just had to get a certificate that confirms her last rabies vaccination. And again, we will link this PDF in the section below and you can download it from there. And just hand it off to your vet. This form is free. The form is free, so yay! The consultation with our vet to fill this out was like 250 dirhams.
Yeah. So the third thing that we actually needed to get for Milka was the CDC dog import permit. And once we received the rabies serologic titer test and the rabies vaccination certificate, we were actually able to apply for the CDC dog import permit. Now, you're gonna want to do this immediately after you receive the 2 rabies documents, because this document from the CDC website states that it can take up to 8 weeks to get an approval and receive the CDC import permit. So this is actually something to keep in mind when you are doing all of this paperwork, that this part can actually take up to 8 weeks.
Yeah, in our case, thankfully, once we applied for the CDC permit, we actually received the CDC import permit within only 2 days. So
yes,
we were so excited and like so happy about that because we wanted to travel ASAP. So yeah, the CDC import permit again is free, so yay, awesome.
So here's what you'll actually need when you apply for the CDC import permit. You'll actually need photographs, so you'll need to take 2 clear photographs of your dog's teeth and make sure that the photographs are recent and taken within 10 days of submitting your application. So you're gonna need the front view of the upper and lower teeth, a side view of the upper and lower teeth. You're gonna.
This is so weird, isn't it? Like, I still don't really understand why, but okay.
I think it makes sense, but just to verify, like, the same dog is arriving into the country. But anyway,
okay.
The CDC import permit, you're also going to need the rabies vaccination and microchip record, which was filled out by your vet. You're also going to need the serologic titer test from the approved laboratory, which you should have now, which we mentioned was the first thing you need. So lastly, you'll need a passport copy of the person who will import the pet into the United States. So the name on the passport needs to match the permit holder. So to be clear, you do not need to be a US citizen for this. I mentioned this because I did see a lot of confusion about not accepting foreign passports, but this is actually not the case. All right, so that's it. You have done everything you need to apply for the CDC import permit. And remember that this can take up to 8 weeks to receive. I did also join a Facebook group called the CDC Dog Import Help page, and there were people sharing lots of helpful information there. We actually have no affiliation with the page, but I did find it helpful.
So this group might be really interesting for you to join as well, to just get up-to-date information on how long the processing time is at the moment. Yeah.
It'll help you plan better.
Exactly.
So once you receive the CDC import permit, it will allow you to import your dog into one of the 18 USA airports.
You can check the list of approved airports in the description. All right, now you are almost there. Make sure to continue watching this video so that you do not miss a single important step in this import process. So the next thing on our to-do list was to get a UAE MOCCAE export permit. If you are not located in the UAE, then you'll probably have to obtain an export permit from the respective authority within your country.
So we applied for the pet export permit, also called an animal health certificate, online at MOCCAE.gov. And then we had to physically visit the MOCCAE office with our dog to receive the physical export permit document. So the cost of this was actually 100 dirhams, and it took us 30 minutes to receive this, and you can apply with the link in the description section.
Now, one more document we actually needed to get was the FMD and Screwworm certificate. You do have to check if the country that your dog is currently located in is considered free from FMD, so foot and mouth disease, and screwworm. And to check this, just go to the link in the description below. The UAE is not considered free of these diseases, so we did have to get a veterinary check done to verify that our dog is free from these diseases.
This actually needed to be done within 5 days of arrival into the United States, so we actually got this done the day before we traveled. This is basically a letter from your veterinarian stating that your dog has been inspected and they are free from foot and mouth disease and they are free from screwworm. So I did not find a template online for this, so here's what our certificate looked like, and your veterinarian can use this as a guide if they're unsure what they're supposed to say on the document. So the cost of this certificate was actually 420 dirhams.
Now?
That's all. That's it. That's everything that we needed to.
Nothing else.
That's all the documents that we needed to get MOCCAE here, exported and imported into the United States. So it sounds like a lot, but honestly, it's really not that much. And I can absolutely tell you that it is so worth it. It is so worth it to have been able to travel with our dog here. Yeah. Definitely
worth the little bit of work that we put in.
Yeah.
So to recap, we successfully flew our 12 kilo French Bulldog inside the cabin from Dubai to New York with Air Canada, and all together, all the documentations and her flight, or adding her to our flight, we spent about 2,248 dirhams. Yeah, that's very specific.
That's the exact price that we paid, because I know sometimes these are questions that people want to know, and I understand they want to know how much is it going to cost me exactly to do what we just did, and that's the exact cost. That's how much we paid to export MOCCAE from the UAE and import her into the United States with all the documents and adding her to our flights.
Yeah, and the Serologic Titer Test was the most expensive part, but it's valid for 1 year, so you could use it actually multiple times if you're traveling multiple times in 1 year.
Yeah.
If your dog is a little jet setter.
Yeah.
We got so many questions about how the flight itself was, so we'll do a little Q&A later as well. But a lot of your questions are going to be answered within this section.
So the great thing is that Air Canada does not have a weight limit, so MOCCAE just had to fit inside of her pet carrier underneath the seat in front of us. So we purchased a soft-sided pet carrier, which we will link in the description section, and I really like this one because it was actually expandable, and even though I wasn't able to expand it on the flight, I think it was a really great option to have in case there was nobody sitting next to me on the flight.
To make the flight as easy as possible and to reduce stress, as well as helping to prevent her immune system from reacting to the stress of the flight, we prepared MOCCAE for the flight well ahead of time. So number one, we trained her to be inside of her travel box for an extended amount of time inside the house. We also fed her functional supplements to ensure her immune system is strong going into the flight. We also started using more calming supplements ahead of time to just help bring her into a calmer mood and again relieve stress. And we used homeopathic remedies during the flight and on the day of the flight to help keep her calm. It's all about, you know, stress-free
Exactly.
travel. So yeah, to prevent anxiety, we did all of that. And we go much more into detail on how to prepare your dog for travel in this video up here. So definitely make sure you watch that later.
So right before the flight, we actually went to the beach with Milka so we can get her to swim and get her tired as much as possible just to get her exhausted.
So hopefully she sleeps a lot on the flight.
Exactly, which she actually did. She slept pretty much through the entire flight. So after we checked into the flight and right before we walked into the security, we went out of the airport again for a potty break and a short walk just to minimize the, you know, the time in between when she would have the opportunity to relieve herself.
The check-in was actually super smooth and we were super like nervous before the check-in because we were like, yeah, we didn't know if Milka was really gonna get on the flight or not, so we were nervous. But the only thing that they asked to see was the CDC import permit and the UAE export permit. They didn't even want to see Milka, so she was just there chilling in her travel bag, just casually checking into a flight to New York.
And that was really, really exciting. We celebrated because it all worked out. The flight itself was full. Milka did sleep pretty much the entire way through, and her carrier actually fit perfectly underneath the seat. I did have less leg room for myself, but honestly, I didn't care. I was just happy Milka was able to travel with me on the flight. We did have a stopover in Toronto, Canada, before reaching our final destination of Newark, New Jersey. Once we arrived in Toronto, they actually had a pre-authorization US customs inspection, and this is where I needed to declare that I had a live dog with me. It was super easy, no questions asked. We just, after they checked everything, we were able to move on to the next flight. So once I arrived to Newark International Airport, that was it. There was no more customs, no more inspection, absolutely nothing. And I actually asked other people around me if there were going to be any more checks because I didn't want someone chasing me down.
So a question that we get asked a lot is, how did Milka go potty during the flight? And the answer is she did not go. She actually held her pee and poop for over 12 hours. Milka is potty trained and she will not go unless she's on a patch of grass. So it wasn't ideal for her to hold for that long, but it worked. You could get diapers for your pet if your pet would make use of it, but there was a station, a pet relief area in Canada. So as we mentioned, we went one last potty break right before the flight in Dubai and then again in Canada, and it was no problem.
So Milk and I just landed into Toronto and it was a 14-hour flight, probably 16 hours since she last peed. So now we are at the pet relief station here in Toronto. It is small, but it doesn't matter. She just needs to pee. I want her to go potty and pee. So, and then we have one more flight, and the next flight is to New York. So one thing we want to mention is to please be responsible and adhere to the rules so that we can all benefit from being able to fly with our dogs for as long as possible. Not adhering to these rules may ban dogs and ruin it for everyone, so please make sure your dog are kept inside the travel bag at all times.
Alright, so now we want to answer a few questions that we received from you guys ever since we shared that Milka is now in the US with us. So the question number one was, can Milka fly back to Dubai inside the cabin with us?
So not really. If your pet's flying private, then yes. But if not, then they may have to go via cargo if they are over 8 kilos. So we flew to America with Air Canada. However, Air Canada is not able to fly her back into the UAE in the cabin. If you have a service dog, then you would be able to travel back in the cabin.
Question number two, how do you continue with a raw diet when you travel with your dog? So we did talk about the actual travel part a little bit more in the video of how to prepare your dog for travel. So we actually fasted Milka during the flight. So she received a double meal before the flight. So she skipped the next breakfast. And then during the flight, she just got treats. That's it. And then when we got to America, we gave her food again. And we researched raw food companies in the USA. Of course, we know lots of companies because we are in the industries. We selected a brand we wanted to feed, and then we purchased from a local natural pet health store in the area that we're staying in. So yeah, traveling for us is not a reason not to feed our dog raw anymore. If you want to know more about a raw food diet and why we feed raw, make sure to watch this video over here. All right, question number 3. What papers do you need to get back into Dubai with your dog?
So the documents we need are a little bit different. So make sure you watch this video up here for all the details on the documents we need to enter back into the UAE.
All right, thank you so much for watching. We hope that this video helps you in being able to travel with your dogs. And please do leave a comment below. Let us know where you guys are traveling to and how everything has worked out. We'd love to know.
And if you have any questions about our travel with Milka, also let us know and we'll speak about them in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. We wish you guys a much safe travel. See ya!
Safe travels!
Bye.
Bye.